Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, it's funny because Democrats love to talk about corrupt elites, right? The rich getting richer, the system being rigged for the powerful. They're always ranting about billionaires and Wall Street greed. But the moment you ask them to look into the mirror, isn't it funny how it all goes out the window, how it all falls apart? They go from end Wall Street greed to leave Nancy Pelosi alone in a frickin' millisecond flat. Ah, good old Nancy Pelosi, a so-called public servant who somehow became one of the wealthiest politicians through her perfectly timed stock trades. Well, obviously, something stinks, and now President Trump is calling it out directly, calling for investigations. Isn't it funny how that works, right? The corrupt billionaire president that they tell you is only in it to enrich himself. Well, he's now the only one actually doing something about it. And well, let's just say greatest traitor of all time, Nancy Pelosi's got a little bit of an issue with it. Oh, this is just glorious, folks. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so let's first start off with the headline. President Trump, during his most recent press appearance, took a little bit of time to address the Pelosi issue. And of course, he did it in true Donald Trump fashion, not exactly beating around the bush, no, calling out Nancy Pelosi by name, suggesting that she likely is engaging in massive corrupt insider trading, and then even calls for an investigation. Yeah, basically one of the most base clips you're going to see all week.
You know, Nancy Pelosi became rich by having inside information. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful. So in that sense, I'd like it, but I'd have to really see I study these things very carefully, and this just happened. So I'll take a look at it. But conceptually, I like it. And what I do think is Nancy Pelosi should be investigated because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street, save a few. How did that happen? It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock, and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made. And she ought to be investigated.
And of course, that made a whole lot of noise, mostly because he's right. Within a couple hours, we got people like Senator Josh Hawley now backing him up, echoing calls for a serious investigation into Nancy Pelosi's stock trades.
I had a good chat with the president earlier this evening, and he reiterated to me he wants to see a ban on stock trading by people like Nancy Pelosi and members of Congress, which is what we passed today. I think it is absolutely vital we put a stop to this. Pelosi shouldn't just be investigated. She should be prosecuted. And we need to make what she is doing and other members of Congress is doing illegal. I mean, you shouldn't be able to go up to Congress and get rich by trading on information that only you have and not members of the public. Right now, lots of members of Congress are getting by with it. We need to make the whole thing illegal.
So when you spoke to the president, did he explain why he called you second tier?
Well, I think that the president, a number of people who are opposed to banning stock trading had said to the president that he would be covered by the bill. He'd have to sell Mar-a-Lago and sell assets. Not the case at all. The president and the vice president, all their assets are totally exempted. And here's the point. This is what we talked about. The point of this bill is to ban members of Congress from trading on the information that only they have. I've supported this bill for years, Jesse. I think we call it the Pelosi Act. It is named for her because she is the poster child of this kind of behavior. It ought to be illegal and it ought to be prosecutable.
So what Pelosi will say is that she doesn't manage any money. Her husband makes the trades and she has nothing to do with it. Does this bill have a loophole that she can exploit again?
No, in fact, this bill will cover not only her, it will cover her husband. And the point is we need to make it illegal for people to do this kind of thing. 86% of Americans look at stock trading by members of the Congress and they say, we ought to ban that. They can't believe it's not been banned already. Nobody should be up in Congress making a quick buck day trading when they should be doing the people's business. The president wants a stock trading ban. I want a stock trading ban. It's time to get it done.
And that was certainly good, but then we get the cherry on top. I mean, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Nancy Pelosi was actually already scheduled for an appearance on CNN on Jake Tapper's show, and well, you could imagine what happened. She walks into the lion's den and instantly gets confronted with Donald Trump's comments, and boy, she didn't exactly handle it well, now did she? Take a look.
Let me just read what he said. I'm sorry that we had some sort of technical issue. Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
But I
and
wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the stop the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider. But the president has his own exposure, so he's always projecting. He's always projecting. And let's not give him any more time on that, please.
I mean, absolute panic. I think I could describe this as defensive rage, a full-blown meltdown. And obviously, just from an optics perspective, it doesn't exactly make her look good. No, I'd say it makes her look guilty, 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 guilty. And that's mostly because Nancy, you'll notice, every time she's faced with this issue, she never actually addresses the claims themselves. No, she just relies on dismissing the issue entirely and acting outraged. And you know, there's probably a reason for that. Because, well, how do you defend the track record? I mean, let's talk about what Nancy's actually done. We all know that Nancy Pelosi and her husband Paul Pelosi have made millions upon millions of dollars. That's just what we know of. The whole portfolio is probably hundreds of millions. Maybe the Pelosis are billionaires at this point. But we know that Nancy Pelosi specifically has made tens of millions of dollars off of perfectly timed stock trades, like the most miracle picks. We're talking investments in companies that are directly impacted by legislation that she was involved in. She bought the stock at the perfect time, then the behind-the-scenes privileged congressional information gets released, and all of a sudden the stock surges, like Paul Pelosi buying Nvidia stock just days before a massive semiconductor subsidy bill passed through the House, or trades in Microsoft and Google just before massive hearings on tech regulations, or how they bought risky options on Visa right around the time of major financial legislation being negotiated. Over and over and over again, it's the same pattern. A vote is coming on an important key issue, and the Pelosis magically buy a stock in a related company, and then boom, massive profits, sell the stock, rake in millions, and then rinse and repeat, do it again. Her portfolio performance is astra-frickin-nomical, especially throughout COVID. And we all know that if you did it, if I did it, if any regular Joe Schmo did it, well then we'd be in prison. But if you're Nancy Pelosi, I guess it's just the privilege of being an elected official now, isn't it? And that's really the point of frustration here, because Nancy Pelosi is supposed to be a public servant, yet she lives like royalty with massive estates across the country. I mean, freaking castles across the country, always in gated communities with armed securities and personal staff, all while regular Americans can't afford rent, can't afford groceries, and sure as hell can't afford to lose 20% of their purchasing power due to an inflationary crisis caused by the Democrat Party and their policies. That's really the biggest issue here, because what exactly has Nancy Pelosi done for the people that she's supposed to represent? I mean, what's her big legacy? Take a look at the streets of San Francisco, a city that's now known across the world not for its stunning beauty and history, but for open-air drug dens, crime, and human waste on the frickin' sidewalks, not to mention a skyrocketing cost of living. She's presided over a party track record that's driven cities into the ground, that's tanked the economy, that's turned the middle class into an endangered frickin' species. And all the while, as the wealth gap continues to grow and as it becomes harder and harder to keep up with living expenses, she's made herself filthy frickin' rich. I mean, filthy rich. It's like the worst transaction ever transacted. You get crime, you get decay, you get inflation, you get foreign policy crisis and immigration crisis. And she gets beach estates and stock portfolios that constantly outperform the top funds. And of course, she gets to continue collecting a pretty decent, a pretty sizable, a healthy government salary. For decades upon decades, she gets to occupy that position essentially forever until she or God decides that it's over. It's a slap in the frickin' face, and this is why people are fed up. This is why faith in government is crumbling, because the people who are meant to serve you are clearly serving themselves. And when they get caught, instead of engaging with the idea, they act outraged, they deflect, they cry, they call conservatives conspiracy theory. Enough is enough. Nancy Pelosi is the cautionary tale, and what likely needs to happen is a total ban on congressional stock trading, serious scrutiny and full transparency when it comes to disclosure of financial activity, but probably most importantly, criminal investigations into obviously suspicious trades. And you know what? Just add on top of it, term limits. Because nobody should be able to sit in office for 40 years, turning a public service position into a dynasty of personal wealth. Nancy Pelosi is the blueprint, and considering everything we know and everything that's been reported on, well, she absolutely should face an investigation. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.